Welcome to the game. I'm Russ Cohen. We've got Nico Riesgo. Nico, how are you?
Russ Cohen, my man.
And we have Michael Jello. Mike, how are you?
Hi.
So let's talk about some baseball tonight. Right now, a hot topic, even though the Mets are completely out of it, Edwin Diaz is getting ready to pitch off the mound and wants to pitch again this season. He had an ACL tear. Uh, Nico, my feeling is if you want to feel like, something positive mentally going into next season, sure, throw off the mound and batting practice to a couple of players and that's it and call it a season because there's no reason that he should go back out on the mound and risk any kind of injury for this season that means nothing. I mean, what is your feeling on that?
I feel he's kind of being pressured in a trade bait. He's trying to get some value here. Looks like what the Mets have done, they've scrapped everything, and they're trying to get value for everybody. Anything they can, if he can pitch and perform and showcase that he's at the same level, boom, they're going to get so much value out of him. If he doesn't pitch, then it's going to be a big question mark. They're probably going to get less.
Well, I don't think they're trying to trade him. That's an interesting take that you have. I don't feel that way, Mike. I feel like, they've
hmm
traded off who they're going to trade off unless, we'll talk about there's another guy who they might trade. But I don't think they're
Right.
trying to trade him, but what's your feeling?
Yeah, I don't think it's trade interest. I mean, we're going to talk about, they seem to be on a path of just potentially just clearing the entire roster of good players and going the rebuild road, which is long, and I don't think many Mets fans are signing up for. But I think this is player motivated. I think he wants to get back up there and throw before the end of the year. And I think it's completely ill advised because what happens if he steps wrong and tears his ACL again? Don't bring him back too early. You've got the team. The season is over with. They suck. They dumped Verlander. They dumped Scherzer. In fact, this recent winning streak, I was listening to New York radio, and they may be taking themselves out of a top 5 or 6 draft pick, and if they get good enough, then I think they fall like 10 spots
Yeah.
in the amateur draft. So they're actually being counterproductive. So I don't think you should pitch again this year, and I think overcook and make sure that everything is in line and get back and ready to pitch in spring training.
Yeah, I agree. Now, another player who could get traded could be Pete Alonso. He's got one more year left after this season, and the Mets have not extended him yet. They're going to talk after the season ends. Uh, Nico, this is an interesting one because if Pete doesn't like the direction the Mets are going in, it's possible he'll test free agency. I do hear that from more than a few people. But again, even testing free agency, chances are his boss will pay him the most. It's an interesting dilemma. Like I said, I think the Mets are done trading what they were going to trade, and I do feel like they're going to try and be better next year. It's not going to be a great year next year, but they have to sell Pete on the future. What's your feeling on that?
Yes, Pete is gone. My feeling that he's had a great Met career. They don't know what to do with him. They don't know how to win with him. They don't know how to build around him. They've blown the greatest years of his career, I think. And again, the way the mentality of the Cohen crime family, it looks like they've criminalized the free agent marketplace for the Mets. I mean, they're never going to have another free agent who's going to want to go there and play. Thinks that eventually they're going to bail out. I mean, it's a crime what they've done to the fans this year. I mean, the big hype, the big go for it. They had the players. They just stuck with the old time dinosaur manager who proved last year he couldn't do it,
Oh,
couldn't win,
Hmm.
and we were faced with the failure. And then they just basically drain everybody, get rid of everybody during the season, just to waste out instead of just ride it out. And like I said, giving everybody at least a chance to try to come back. It's just a disgrace.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Blaming all this on Buck Showalter is a load of crap. And I'm not saying this because he was a Yankee manager. I'm saying, some of the responsibility to this has to go to Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer for pitching like crap when they were with the Mets. I mean, now it was not just them, but that was a big part of it. They didn't get the offensive production that they thought they were going to get out of some of their players. And it happenstance that Scherzer has gone to Texas and pitched well, and Verlander has gone back to Houston and pitched okay. I mean, they're pitching better than they did when they were with the Mets. Okay, but I don't, with less talent, Buck Showalter is, I think, 7-2 or 7-3. So I don't think he's a bad manager. Obviously the chemistry was not good, and it's proof that you can spend $350 million and not have a good team. But with the Alonso situation, and this is where, like, I think the Mets, they know he's popular in the market. They want to pay him, but they don't want to pay him what apparently he's angling toward, which is an Aaron Judge type of contract where he wants 40 million bucks. The highest paid first baseman in the league, I think, is Freddie Freeman in the mid 20s. I think they would offer him that, but if he's bucking to get a $40 million payout, then they're probably going to walk away or trade his ass in the offseason.
Yeah, the one thing I would say, couple things. So yeah, Billy Epler has a lot to do with the roster. So he takes a lot of blame, but again, he's probably his job for whatever reason seems to be safe, which is odd. Um, Buck Showalter does deserve a fair amount of blame. I mean, he has, even as recently as 2 days ago, stuck with Carlos Carrasco, who has a 6 ERA, two batters too long. When if the Mets had won that game, they'd have been just 6 out of the wild card. And I'm not saying they're in it, but I'm just saying it's emblematic of what happens with Buck when he overmanages. The other part is Scherzer's doing slightly better than when he was with the Mets, but he just got tanked his last game. Verlander is doing better. That's the one where I didn't understand why they had to go that extra mile to trade him. We'll see how the prospects all work out on that one, but that one was the one that didn't make sense because he was starting to pitch better. Not that he's ever going to be the Verlander of old, but he was starting to do better. So that was a little surprising. There's a certain amount of dysfunction with the Mets, and Mike, oddly enough, there's a lot of dysfunction with the Yankees.
Yeah, it's a season that's gone from bad to worse. I mean, you can blame injuries up to a certain point, and they've had a ridiculous amount of them from losing, from not even having Rodon, their big free agent signing, until July, and then he goes on the DL again and then comes back. You're losing Montas in spring training and never even having him. But then they lose Nestor Cortez, who was a steadying force on their rotation last year, and he's out for the year. And when your number two guy in your rotation is Clark Schmidt, who wasn't even supposed to be in your rotation at the beginning of the year, that's an issue. And then on top of that, you lose, Rizzo to a concussion. Stanton can't play the outfield, can't run. If he runs out a base hit, he pulls a hammy or a calf muscle. They lose Judge on the freak injury at the beginning of June and lose him for almost 2 months. And the 2 months that they lost him, I mean, they were in the first wild card when he got hurt, and they were 4 or 5 games out of the wild card when he came back, and then they got even worse, losing 9 games in a row. I mean, it's just major dysfunction, but the question is where the blame goes. And the problem is that Hal Steinbrenner has none of his dad's want to make dramatic and emotional changes. Maybe that's a good thing sometimes, but when Brian Cashman has been in that position for 20 some odd years and is basically the surrogate member of the Steinbrenner family, I mean, Bob Clappish wrote a piece last week where he basically said, you know, Cashman's not in danger. The fall guy might end up being Aaron Boone. And honestly, Aaron Boone, I think, is the least responsible guy here for the downfall of this team. They won 99 games last year. They got to the ALCS. He's managing what he has, and what he has is not much when you have an outfielder Jake Bowers and Willie Calhoun and Billy McKinney. How the hell are you supposed to win?
Nico?
The Yankees crumbled last year, right before the playoffs. They traded their two lefties, and we talked about putting zeros on the board, given everything they got for the Yankee faithful, the organization, for an everyday player batter who really did more than it was expected from that trade. So just you don't throw away starting pitching for everyday players. That's rule number one. They know that. They gave away two for one. They just got played. Cashman got played. That is worth his job because, like I said, from there it all crumbled this year. They had nothing really going in. Any type of injury was going to set them back, and they just don't. They just don't have the pieces, and it doesn't seem like they have the intelligence again to build the dynasty that they're used to, and it's going to be tough to catch those Rays.
Jordan Montgomery was a third or fourth starter who had an basically an ERA of 4, and they ended up trading him for a guy who was a platinum glove center fielder. His problem is he can't stay healthy, who was arguably their best hitter in the playoffs. So I mean, I don't see that as the problem with them last year. The problem was essentially, I mean, Cole didn't pitch great in the playoffs, and their offense, as usual in the postseason, dried up. So, and now this year, their offense dried up in June. You had guys like Anthony Rizzo who got concussed, and got Giancarlo Stanton who can't break the Mendoza line, and DJ LeMahieu was a 2-time batting champion hitting 230. I mean, the only guys who have been hitting up to snuff for them is, Gleyber Torres is having a decent year, and Judge is, hitting for power and hitting decent average and good on base. But, with him out of the lineup for 2 months, I mean, that's, and by the way, I missed one name of the rotation. Domingo Herman, who pitched a perfect game, got so drunk in the Yankees locker room that apparently started throwing things around and was out of control. So I mean, just everything fell apart this year. But the question is whether Hal Steinbrenner at the end of this year will have will have the guillotine out for anybody. I have the feeling what's going to happen is that Boone is going to get let go, and he'll be the fall guy to this. But the guy that they bring in will just be another analytics guy who who the analytics department of the Yankees controls, and that's the problem with the organization. They are too focused on analytics when they should just be focused on getting good ball players.
All right, so just imagine my voice sounds like Mike Francesa. They're 1-9 in their last 10. It's pathetic. Chris Chambliss couldn't even save them now. They're a minus 28 in differential, which is crazy. They're tied with the Angels, which is brutal. They're only 3 games over 500 at home, which probably hasn't happened since like the Horace Clark era. I mean, right now this is as bad as it gets. They will have to do some things. Honestly, from an outsider's perspective, whether it's Boone's fault or not, I don't feel like they're going to miss anything, whether Aaron Boone's there or not, because they are analytics driven, and the next guy is going to do the same thing. So I
Sure.
don't feel like the manager position is going to be that big of a deal if he leaves. And I think Boone knows the game. I don't think he's a bad manager. I'm just saying, just the way the Yankees operate, and to be honest, most teams these days, whether we like it or not, I just feel like it's going to go that way. So uh, this is one worth watching because next season will be interesting. I don't know if they'll spend just to spend, but it's not the best free agent market. I don't know if they'll uh, try and contact the Mets and trade for Pete Alonso. I don't know what's
Well,
going to happen.
Well, I'll just say this because I mean Donaldson's 25 some odd $1 million drops off. His contract expires. Severino's deal expires. They have money dropping off that I'm sure that they'll probably want to go out and spend because their fan base demands it. But you are seeing similar to what they did in 2016 when they called up Gary Sanchez and Aaron Judge late in the season. They called up Everson Pereira. They called up Oswald Peraza. They're supposedly going to call up Jason Dominguez at the maybe in September when the rosters expand to 40 men. So maybe there is a move afoot to finally use some of the young prospects that they've been talking about ad nauseum and infuse some some speed and some, just athleticism to their lineup because they have a bunch of old, slow, injury prone guys, and you have to sort of change with the times. You see what Baltimore is doing, you've seen what Tampa has done, mixing in young players. I mean, Baltimore are the poster child for, sucking for years and years on end, drafting high, and now you've got Roochman, and you've got Jackson Holiday coming, and you've got Henderson, and they're a loaded team, and they'll have all those players under control for 5 or 6 years. So it might be the era of the Orioles for the next 5 or 6 years.
Well, there's no question now that the rules have changed, that speed is a bigger deal because, we're seeing big stolen base numbers. Acuna has 57 steals. He wouldn't have had that under the old rules. So, this is the change in the game again. So let's talk about the NL East race, which is the best race, not the East. It's the wild card. And it happens to have the Phillies in it, but I just, my mind always goes to the East. The interesting thing is, so like the Phillies lost today, and their fans always seem to get carried away. Like they're looking for these signs like it was going to be last year, but they're still 4-6 in their last 10. They did win, a game. They pulled one out the day before against the Giants, but their first game was a bullpen game. So you can't get too excited, but this is how close it is. Miami's got 65 wins, San Fran 66, Cincinnati 66, Arizona 66, Cubs 66, Philly 69. Like that is ridiculous. Now, do I think there's too many wild card spots? Of course I do, because somebody's going to make, the wild card with like a 515. And I know we can go back to the 73 Mets who had the lowest winning percentage ever making it, but that was like one aberration. But, a team's going to make it this year with like a 520 winning percentage. And I think Arizona is going to make it. I don't know if the Cubs will. I don't know if the Reds will. I think Giants and Phillies might end up fighting it out in the end because, like I said, it's not that big a lead. And the interesting thing is, Nikco, coming down the stretch, if the Phillies need to win games, they've got 7 in September against the Mets. It's not the greatest team to have trouble against, to have to win against, because A, they haven't been very good against them the last couple of years, and B, with guys like Alonso and Lindor, and Alvarez, they could still inflict some problems, some trouble.
That's going to be a tough series for them to try to win and get that wild card spot, especially against those Reds. Those Reds are for real. Ellie Deli Cruz again today. He
6
is
RBIs.
That's right. From the right-hand side, the left-hand side, no matter who you're pitching, a left-hander or right-hander, he's going to do some damage. And he's got speed. He's got power. What a great talent to watch. And if he's got a say in this race here, the Reds are going to be right in the thick of it.
Yeah, none of these teams have fantastic pitching, and I think even for the Cubs, Stroman's currently out. But Mike, I wrote on Full Press that the Phillies, Wheeler's almost a full run a game more than last year, and Nola has like a 4.4 ERA. He pitched a good game last game, but he's getting wins because the Phillies score a lot of runs. So it's like, I don't know. I mean, if any of these teams get representative pitching, it's a toss up.
Yeah, and if you look at the run differential right now in this wild card race, I mean the Cubs are plus 66 of all these teams that are, their offense is pretty good, but their
Yeah.
pitching right now, they've only allowed 570 runs. The only one better than that in amongst those teams that you listed with 65 or 66 wins is San Francisco, and
Yeah.
San Francisco's offense is not great.
No.
So I mean, I think the best offense of all those teams are the Reds. I agree with De La Cruz. He's a phenom. He's just an unbelievable talent who's only going to get better. But they're in a bandbox ballpark and their pitching is not great. Where and the there's no bigger of a bandbox ballpark than Wrigley, but the Cubs. I mean, if of the because we're talking about 5 teams fighting or 6 teams for fighting for 3 spots. I think the Phillies right now they're 3 games up on those other teams. I mean, we're in the middle or mid late August, so it's all possible that they could fall out of it. But I think they have enough offense and maybe just barely enough pitching to get there. But if I had to pick 2 teams to finish in the second and third wild card, I would say it's going to be the Cubs and the Giants.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue against that. It is. Nico, we should talk about the Texas Rangers because what a weird year for them. I mean, they get to Grom, he looks good, then he's out, and he might be out for the rest of his career. Like we don't know. They have Scherzer, and they're having the best year they've had in forever. And they're one of the teams that look like they could lock down a division. Are they a serious World Series threat? Are between Baltimore and them? I know you like Tampa, even though they're a wild card team. Like, I don't know. Can the Texas Rangers actually win it?
Absolutely, they can win it, and they've been with the same attitude since day one. They believe they have the confidence in the general manager, Kevin Young. He's put together some long-term agreements with Seager, and then they got some young stars in Aldis Garcia, and now with Scherzer, that's the Grom factor, ace in the hole right there that they just pulled out of the hat there. So that is going to let everyone know that they're ready and they're ready to compete at the highest levels to win it all. And there's nothing really slowing them down. They've got everything and they're ready to go. They
Yeah,
just
and
got to
I
beat those Astros.
and Mike, it's we always learned who's really good through fantasy, and even though he doesn't have a lot of homers, Nathaniel Lowe is really, really effective. He does a lot of different things, and Adolis Garcia, I don't know if he gets credit for being as good as he is. Like, he's got 31 homers, he's gonna have 100 RBIs soon. Nobody really talks about him.
No, I mean, he's to say he's a solid player is an understatement. It's funny because he was in the he was in the Cardinals chain along with Randy Arozarena, and it just shows the incompetence of the Cardinals organization that they traded both of those guys away, as well as Alcantara and Zach Gallen, and like how many good players that they've given up. The funny thing is,
You should ask your brother about that, Mike. Just
oh
saying.
yeah, Newt Bar. Thank you. I just say Newt Bar. But with the Rangers, they seem to always be this organization that spent money stupidly, and these players would basically go there sort of to die in the sense of a career, and that seems to have happened with DeGrom. But they filled the DeGrom hole with Scherzer, and Scherzer's pitched well there. They got Montgomery from the Cardinals, and he's plugged in to their rotation. But the strength of this team is their offense. Simeon, I don't think he's worth the money that they spent, but he's a good ball player. And Seager, after struggling last year, I mean, he's hitting 343. He's having, it's not going to be an MVP year because the MVP is going to reside in Anaheim, but it's an excellent year. And along with Lowe and Garcia and Jonah Haim, who gives you offense at catcher that most teams don't get. I mean, their lineup is really solid, say 1 through 7. And there are not many teams in the American or the National League that have a lineup as deep as them. And that will
True.
probably carry. No, if they don't win the division, because Houston's only, I think, a half a game behind them, they'll at least be the first wild card.
Yeah, I think that that's fair, and I think that is just so. Nico, we'll go around the room here uh, and ask who is the best team currently. And I know last year that the Phillies ended up beating the Braves, but I just think that that was fortuitous. This Braves team is even better. Like, I'm watching, the last few weeks of them play, and they have power, they have speed, they have pitching, they have defense. Like, there's really nothing they don't have. So I can't see, except for injury or it's just some pitching staff completely shuts them down, how they could possibly lose this year.
You're spot on, Russ. The Braves are the best team in the world right now, as we speak. So chopping them down, our only team that's even close to doing something like that are the Dodgers, obviously, and so that's going to be the battle. But the Braves are just way, way too loaded. Olsen You're talking about Austin Riley. You're talking about Ozzy Albies. You're talking about Acuna. These are Hall of Famers. I mean, these guys
Wow.
are really playing their way into the record books. And then you're looking at their pitching. The guy just strikes out everybody. Strider, and then they've got Fried back, and they've got the young elder, and they're just got the old steady Charlie Morton. I mean, they've got everything to win it all. But again, they got to get past those Astros.
Mike?
Well, they've got 7 players who've hit 20 home runs or more. I mean, they're not only the best team in Major League Baseball, they're the best team in Major League Baseball by leaps and bounds. So, I mean, the rotation is really good. Their bullpen is decent, but their offense is incredible. Well, the thing is the offense can dry up, and we've seen that with teams. In the playoffs, it's a different situation when you're trying to
But they can
launch
play small
angles.
ball too now.
But they can play small. Exactly. That's the thing. They can steal bases. They can run. They can, and they're good defensively. So I don't think they're a one trick pony. The Dodgers, they've had to the Dodgers have had to deal with like a bunch of injuries in their
Mhm.
rotation. They lost Dustin May for the year. Gonsolin is not the pitcher that he was last year. Kershaw is ageless. He's just, he's still pitching. And they go out and they trade for Lance Lynn, who was a gas can with the White Sox and now is Cy Young with them. So
Yeah, I don't know.
they've,
Maybe it's that mound at the Dodger Stadium.
yeah, maybe you never know, but maybe Jimmy Hoffa's buried under it. But I'll just say this: in the National League, I think the Atlanta's the clear favorite, and the Dodgers are second, and those are the 2 best records. So that's not exactly going out on a limb. In the American League, I'm sorry, the Houston Astros aren't even the best team in their own division, let alone in the American League. Now they have the championship pedigree, but I don't think that. I think a team like Baltimore, even though they're young, has so much more talent than Houston, and I think that the Rangers are better than them right now, especially after the addition of Scherzer and Montgomery, and their lineup is better. But I'll just I may be motivated emotionally because I would like to see the Astros lose every game from here to the end of time. I just don't think that they deserve to win another World Series, but they are a good team and they have good players. But I don't think they're the best team in the American League by leaps and bounds.
Yeah, I think Nico's fixation on the Astros is unwarranted. The Orioles are definitely better, but I'm mad about the Orioles because on one of my fantasy sites they said Kremer wasn't starting this week, so I didn't use him. And of course, he's pitching a great game tonight. That would have been like it's just I don't know where that came from, but I should sue them. I just
Those
feel like I
lying,
should.
those
Yeah,
lying bastards.
yeah. It's
If the
like give your
Orioles make it past the first round of the playoffs for us, then we can have another conversation. Okay. You're talking
they're
about
going to get
experience
Yeah,
past.
in the playoff atmosphere.
Why
Okay.
would you think they wouldn't?
We're
yeah.
going to see. None of them have any experience whatsoever. These guys are like fish out of water here when it comes to the playoffs, and the Astros are proven, and we're going to see the difference. That's all I'm
The
just trying to tell
69
you.
Mets
We're
Well,
had
going to
no
see the difference.
experience. They
well,
beat everybody. It
I'll
happens.
I'll I'll say this because it's very possible that the Tampa Bay Rays catch the Orioles in the AL East. The Orioles that
Mhm.
don't have a lot of experience now. The talk is they may call up Jackson Holiday from Double A or Triple A in September, and this is possibly the best or second best prospect not in Major League Baseball right now. So that could infuse them with some additional offense. The rotation is pretty decent. Yeah, Tampa Bay, you know, they seem to react just like they don't seem to be phased by anything. And we haven't talked about Wander Franco, but losing a guy like that who is in the center of your lineup and maybe losing him not only for the rest of the year, but for his career because of
Yeah.
stuff that we can't substantiate. It's a testament to that organization that they can roll with the punches and still be effective.
No, Tampa's pretty exciting,
We
and
can't
pretty
even
amazing.
pronounce the replacement's name, but what a tremendous talent he is. I guess his first home run was a grand slam and just proving himself that who was Wander.
We're losing Nico a little.
Do you
Yeah,
know his name?
Osalvis
Barabas or
No, Basabi.
Wasabi.
Wasabi.
All right, we're going to be saying that name for the next 10 years because it's like, yeah, who's Wander Franco? It's nothing about Wasabi now.
All right.
Yeah.
One last thing. I did write about this on Full Press as well. MLB attendance is up. I do have to give Rob Manfred credit because I do think the pitch clock and a few of those other moves, the fact that the games are way under 3 hours now, does matter, Mike. And people are showing up more at the ballpark. I think it's like a 9% difference, a plus 9% at the gate.
Yeah, I mean, the pitch clock is making a difference. You having games be 2.5 hours, that's much more, I think, friendly for fans. And I'm a traditionalist, so you can never get me to agree on the ghost runner in the extra innings. I think it's
Mhm.
an abomination. But I just don't like some of the things that Rob Manfred has implemented in this game. So I think he just got a 4-year extension, which makes me sick. But because he's going to continue to probably go in a direction that a lot of traditional fans don't want the game to go. But I guess it's a feather in his cap that attendance is up.
Got to give it to him. All right. Nico, you got anything before we close out?
Today's game brought to you by Fleming's Steakhouse. Enjoy the flavor.
All right. That's it. Thanks for listening to the game. We'll catch everybody next time.
My man.
I like the Outback better.